New Hampshire Motor Speedway, qualifying trim 22170 on the second lap. Leave the pits at -4 on the weight jacker. We'll do -4 on the out lap and the first lap. We're going to take a shallow apex so the car goes out wide and you use all of the track. You want to lift off ever so slightly to get the turn in so you can get back on the power and again drift all the way out to the wall. Down to -3 on the weight jacker, again a shallow apex, right back out to the wall. Still at -3 on the weight checker. Trying to get the car as low down into the apex as you can without going into that bottom lane of death. It's -3 again from 3 and 4. There you go, 22.170. Let's have a look at that again, break the lap down just a little bit. The secret to the lap, if there is a secret, is to try and get as low down to the apex. Take a wide entry, cut across the top of the apex so that you can take the line as close to one that you would take at Milwaukee, except whereas at Milwaukee you get right down onto the corner apron. Here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, as we all know, you cannot go down into the first lane. So use the first lane as your apron. You're going to use the weight jacker as fits yourself, how comfortable you feel with it. It's at -4 for me on the out lap, the first lap, or the first half of the first lap, and then -3. You can go to -2 if you feel that the car is pushing too much for you, or you might stay at -4 on the first lap if you, for instance, use a lower steering ratio. For me, the car's set at a 20-degree steering ratio, and for me it works better to go -4 down to -3 and stay there. Let's have a look at the lap. So at the pits, -4 straight away. Doesn't matter how fast you come out the pits. 22.170 is possible on the first flying lap, but on this run I don't get it until the second lap. So -4 on the weight jacker going into the turn 3 turning point. We're at the 2 marker. We're going to start thinking about turning in before we get to the 1. So here you're starting to turn in now. A small lift out of the gas will let the car turn into the apex without it pushing out. You cannot keep your foot flat on the floor, not yet. The setup isn't ready for it. If you keep your foot flat on the floor, you'll just start to scrub the tyres. You're in the second lane. Your left tyres are just above the first lane. You're going to want to try and track out of the corner across this line here. You're going to go all the way out to the wall, but you don't want to be out here. If you're out here, you've made the track a longer distance around, and it's going to be a slower lap time. Still at -4, right out at the wall. Absolutely no gap between you and the wall. As you go into turn 1, you're going to start thinking about a little comfort lift to take some push out of the car. So you're at turn-in point. See, it's an early turn in, but it's going to be a wide apex. And right around here, you see a tiny, tiny blip just to let the car turn in. It's almost imperceptible. So it's just a comfort lift. You lift out, unload the car, let it start to turn in, and then apply the gas again. Because what you're going to try and do is let the engine keep the car away from the inside line. You're going to come across the top here but you don't want to get too low. See, a very shallow line. You're coming across the top of the apex. If you get the left wheels down here, the car's going to catch and spin you out into the wall. So you're applying the gas to try and keep the car pushing out. You might see a lot of steering input, but that's because the back is trying to oversteer and understeer at various times. Modulate the throttle if you need to, just to stay on top of the car. Right out against the wall, absolutely no space left over this side of the car. You get right out to the wall, means you maximize your track out, maximize your exit speed, and get your foot to the floor as hard as soon as possible. But don't jam it. If you jam it, you'll upset the car, so squeeze it to the floor. See, we're still at -4 on the weight jacker. See the turning point. It's nice early turning. We're down to -3 on the weight jacker now, because otherwise the car is just going to understeer that little bit too much. Again, we're going to try and take a shallow apex across the top of the corner. You don't want to get too low. Remember, down here the car's going to spin out. Out here you're just going to burn out the tyres, scrub off speed, and put in a slower lap. There's another comfort lift, so let's have a look at the throttle trace. Slightly bigger lift, but still not much. And that's just so that the car stops pushing out. Otherwise you're putting too much steering lock in, which just means you're going to actually start to scrub the front tyres. You're not going to get any more steering just by turning it. All you're going to do is see loads of smoke billowing off the right front tyre. There is going to be smoke on this lap, but that doesn't matter. You only need the tyres for 3 laps anyway. So a little lift to unload the car, let it turn in, and then squeeze back to full power. But again, if you feel that you're starting to push out, lift out a little bit. If you feel that you're about to turn into the inside lane, put your foot down again. Again, the steering input is based pretty much on how much throttle you're applying. All the way out to the wall. Still at -3 on the weight jacker, foot flat on the floor. Small lift on the throttle, tiny lift, but it's to help the car turn in. Remember, nice early turn in, shallow turn in. Look at the steering angle, there's not a lot of steering being applied. Coming out of the throttle means you don't have to apply as much, so you're not fighting the car as it wants to continue driving into the stand. And coming across the top of the inside lane. See, throttle isn't flat on the floor because you may have to play with it. As you feel that the car is pushing, use it instinctively, lift out a little. If the car starts pushing, don't steer more, lift out of the throttle a little bit. If it looks like it's going too low and you're going to catch the inside line, foot on the floor. Try not to put too much steering in because the tyres are already being overworked. And again, you're going to try and drive all the way out to the wall. Still on -3 on the weight jacker. If you feel like you want to go to -2, you can do. Just beware that it could be a little bit of an oversteery ride. Small lifts. One small lift as you come across the bump. Turn in. See, the turn in comes after the lift. Lift first, then turn. So the tyres are unloaded. Let the car drop down to come across the top of the corner. using the inside lane as your apex. Get as low as you can, and then when confidence allows, keep your foot on the floor. It will push you away from the low line. But just like Milwaukee, you want to see if you can come off the low line as close to the apex as possible. But remember, this is not your apex. This is your apex. All the way out to the wall. 22-1, 7-0.